Hey Legit fam, it's Tiffany.
And Andrew.
And we're here with our first ever Uncensored Movie Review Podcast. And on today's episode, we're going to talk about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And so with that, let's get into it.
And before we get into it, this is a very in-depth review of this movie. So a spoiler alert is in effect.
You have been warned.
So this movie is set in 1969 Hollywood. It takes place over the course of about 3 days or so. And one thing that I really like about this movie is how they are able to set up the feeling of being in 1969 Hollywood. Yeah. It really takes you back, the real nostalgic effect of how the scenery is laid out. From what I read, they did a lot of work to recreate some of the iconic roads and buildings and stuff from 1969 Hollywood, and I think that's something that really helped push this movie to the next level.
It's not only that, throughout the film they made references to old shows and old movies, and when they did that, they changed the aspect ratio to match what it would have been back in the day. You can tell that there was a quality difference.
Yes.
The way that the colors were edited back then, much more contrast. So they definitely really immersed you in what it felt like to be watching movies in 1969.
Yeah, the one thing, for instance, was this, I recall the scene with the drive-in movie theater, which of course you don't see those these days, and if you do, it's far and few between. But stuff like that is just the small details and everything like that is makes the environment. But one other thing I want to touch on as far as the environment is the people in the environment. The way they dress, the way they did their hair and everything. So I really think for this film it was spot on. And one thing that I like to point out is the hippies. It's 1969 Hollywood. The hippies they're around, and you can definitely see how Rick Dalton and Cliff Booth, how their feelings are towards the hippies.
Oh yeah, man. As I'd love to say, man. Throughout the movie, the way they talked, it was like
their
so
diction
groovy.
is definitely from 1969. Yeah. Oh, what a drag. Like, oh, okay.
It was definitely entertaining to just see what it was like.
Yeah.
I'm definitely way too young to have lived in that era.
Yeah, that's more so not even my parents. That's more so my grandparents.
My parents were in their teens, like not their teens, but their preteen years.
Yeah. So this was kind of probably very influential, for them. But and another thing was the smoking in this film. My goodness, there was so much smoking.
Sometimes I felt like I could smell the smoke.
Yeah. And there was one scene like when they were on the plane, and then the plane is just like filled with smoke from people smoking. I was like, Jesus, this is a different time.
Boy, have the times changed.
Yeah, so like you said, I think they did a really good job at selling this era. And this
really
movie.
did. Yeah, they really did. But more importantly, with selling the era was the characters and the actors that played the major role throughout the movie. We had 3 to 4 intertwined storylines. We had Rick Dalton, who was the big actor, who's now the struggling actor. We had Cliff Booth, who was Rick Dalton's stunt double. We had Sharon Tate, who was a real life actress. And then we had references to the Manson family cult. And while I don't believe they had their own storyline per se, they were heavily influential in at least 2, if not all 3, depending on how you consider
definitely. Well, I mean, I think definitely, obviously with Sharon Tate, because of if you're not familiar, history. Do some research.
Yeah.
When it comes to Sharon Tate, but also with Cliff Booth's character.
Yeah.
Obviously, there were parts where they were directly connected.
So let's kind of talk about, I feel like, the characters a little bit, because like we said, there's a few major ones. Rick Dalton being a very pivotal one. I would say that the movie kind of rests on his character, just because his character is the reason why Cliff Booth is around.
Yeah.
And it's kind of progressing the movie forward. Because, like, at face value, if you're not aware of, like, the Manson family cult and stuff, the movie is about Rick Dalton struggling with his career.
Right.
You know, it kind of starts off, the movie is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, so it kind of starts off like once upon a time, Rick Dalton was at the height of his career, and he was, you know, the star of this amazing TV show.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's not. Now he's just a heavy...
He's fallen to the side of what he used to be. And he's coming to terms with that. You know, that's more or less... part of the opening scene is him coming to terms with him not being on the same level that he was, you know, 5-6 years ago. He's not at that same level of stardom, and it
affects him very heavily.
It hits him hard.
I have to say that Leonardo does an amazing job with that. You know, the way that Rick Dalton moves through emotions such as like feeling this sadness and disappointment in his like career and himself. So also
self-pity is good.
Yeah, and also hyping himself up, rehearsing with himself.
Yes.
You know, beating himself down.
The like, trailer scene, I really like the trailer scene.
What was the trailer scene?
The trailer scene, so this was after he had did the first takes of the new movie that he was starring in.
Yeah, so he was filming a pilot for a TV show.
Yeah, the pilot. It wasn't a movie. Yeah, so he had messed up a couple of the lines during the first taping, and he went back in his trailer and was obviously upset with himself. If you've seen the trailer, it's in the trailer as well. But what the trailer doesn't show is that he more or less broke down. He realized why he was struggling so bad with his lines, you know, because he's a
lousy drunk.
Yeah, he is a drunk. That's what he calls himself.
Yeah.
You know, so.
In the beginning of the movie, they say that, like, Cliff, his stunt double, has to drive him around everywhere because he's had so many DUIs.
Yeah, he's got his license taken away.
He's a lousy drunk. And so he's going in this breakdown that you're talking about where he's just, like, he's beating himself. He's yelling. He's smashing things. He's talking to himself in the mirror. And at one point, he's like, you know... and I don't resonate with this, but I feel like a few people might, where it's like, why couldn't you have just stopped at 3 drinks?
Yeah,
but you had to have it.
8.
You had to have it.
8.
Yeah.
Like, you don't even like them.
You don't even like them. Yeah. And then he's like, you're not drinking. That was it.
Yeah.
And then he proceeds to take another shot, and he realizes like, oh shoot, and he like throws the shot glass, and he's just even more mad at himself.
The part that cracked me up, because then he looks in the mirror, is like, you're gonna stop this shit right now. I'm gonna blow your fucking brains out tonight.
And
I'm
like,
serious.
He's looking in the mirror, but it's funny because he's like making eye contact with like the
camera,
audience. Yeah, so you feel like he's looking at you when you're like,
he's looking in the mirror. It's like there's no way he's looking at himself. But that's you know, one of Tarantino's things. So but
can we talk about another one of Tarantino's things?
What?
Feet.
Yeah, that is definitely something I want to point out. That's something I kind of want to go back to with the hippies, because those are some of the dirtiest feet I ever seen. That, and it was like, so when Cliff was driving Pussycat back to the ranch, she put her stank ass feet up on the glass, up on the dash. I was like, oh no.
They were dirty.
No,
but Sharon Tate's feet was dirty too, and she was wearing nice boots.
That's what. I
don't know how they got so dirty.
She walked up in the theater, watch her own movie, kicked off her boots and put them up on the seat in front of them, having dirty old feet
they
up
there. They were so dirty.
You know them things, right? That's why I said, that's why I was thinking they did a really good job at selling this era, because I was like, all right, yeah, y'all some dirty hippies. But Sharon ain't have no excuse. She was just living the best life.
Yeah,
clearly.
she was a sweetheart. But yeah, so Rick Dalton was a fun character.
Little narcissistic, but I think he needed it because it tied into Cliff Booth's character.
Yes.
And if we want to merge into him, Cliff Booth has always been seen more or less in the shadows of Rick Dalton, and I think that plays into his character a lot. You know, he's always seen as a very good friend. I'll always be there for you. I'm always driving you around. You know, I take care of whatever you need. He runs errands for Rick while he's shooting when he's not needed. You know, that's a pretty good friend. But I mean, I'll let you talk about Cliff.
Yeah, so with Cliff throughout the movie, it becomes increasingly more obvious that like nobody really likes him.
Yeah.
With the exception of Rick, who has his back.
Yeah, Rick.
The same way that Cliff has Rick's back. But nobody likes him because, as the movie says, he killed his wife and got away with it, and it is remarkably so it's claimed, and it's remarkably similar to the story of Natalie Woods. If you're not familiar, she was, a celebrity whose murder went unsolved, and a lot of people think that it was her husband. She died on a boat, went missing on a boat, yada yada. And so it's alluded to that.
Yeah, there's a scene in the movie,
and she's like, she literally basically says, she's like, all my friends said, Natalie, don't marry him, he's a lowlife, blah blah blah, and it's like, Natalie Woods. So it's very painfully obvious that that's who they're basing the character off of, I guess. But other than that, I think that Cliff was a very likable character throughout the movie. Cliff. He seems very humble. Tries to keep to himself, tries to do the right thing. Even there's, so as you mentioned earlier, there's a scene where he's driving, one of the Manson girls, or the hippies, as we may have been referencing to them, and the characters reference them as hippies throughout the movie.
I love Rick's turn at fucking hippies. I love when
he really hates them hippies. But
he hates the hippies so bad.
But so Cliff is driving them to the ranch where all the Manson family is staying, and it's obvious that there's serious chemistry between Cliff's character and Pussycat. But she's definitely underage, or at least so we're told, and he's like, nope, I'm not, you're underage, I'm absolutely not doing it. He has some
moral restraint.
Yeah, he definitely does, like, because she was definitely pushing herself onto him.
She was way more than
and
willing.
He was like,
wow. She was more or less surprised, like, whoa, you're telling me no? And like,
he was very much like, he had whatever he valued, he stuck to his values. And so something, because we watched it for the second time today, something that I kind of felt was that when he picked up Pussycat, it was definitely like, oh, I have interest in you. I felt that. But when she mentions where she's going, which is the ranch that they used to film movies at, I kind of felt like he was curious more so to see what was happening at his old friend's ranch. Exactly. At that point, it became no longer about her. He was definitely interested in her, but it was more so like, it's just you that stays there? It's like, no, it's me and all my friends. And
like, oh, what are all these people there doing there?
I definitely felt that there was like a shift in motivation at that point. And I felt that was even more obvious when she tried to like seduce him, and he was like, you're not old enough, let's continue. Because I think he already knew what he wanted to see for himself, what was going on.
Right. And I think that has to do a lot with the people that he has around him, and it's not many. I think he sticks close to the people that he has, and he cares deeply about them. For all we know, he only has Rick and his dog Brandy. Those are the only two people that he goes home to Brandy whenever he's done with Rick for the day, and then next morning he comes and picks up Rick,
and they circle.
So that's really the only two people that you can see in his life that he really cares about, and he treats them well.
But he knows, and I forget the character's name, that he owns the ranch. So he just wants to check up on him and make sure that everything is okay. So he gets to the ranch, and this scene, so the movie itself is kind of slow. Probably to many it's really slow, but to me, I had a lot of intrigue, and I'll get to that later. But this part of the movie where he gets to the ranch, I would say that is definitely it kept me on the edge of my seat.
Because you're not sure what's really gonna happen.
I knew something was up, or at least that's what they want you to think.
Right.
Because you're now on the Manson family's turf, and if you're not, you may not be familiar with Sharon Tate and how she was murdered by them. But I would hope that most people these days are familiar with the Manson family cult. Right. They're very well known. Killed people, very dangerous, not cool. But so he's there on the ranch with them, and
Well, Manson is not there.
Manson is not there. He's a very
gone.
Small part of the movie.
Yeah.
Like he's just
only
referenced
in one scene, I think,
to kind of establish that.
And to be quite honest, I wasn't 100% familiar with how Tate related to Manson, and so I thought every person that had like long hair and kind of like a beard or like some scruff was Manson. So I was like, man, there's Manson. And I was like, oh, no, there's Manson.
Everybody just looks the same.
They all look the same.
They all have the same haircut and hairstyle.
Oh man, and boy did Roman Polanski, they did a great job making him look like Austin Powers.
But anyway, so at the ranch, as soon as they get there, it cuts to like the family in the house, and they're like, yo, someone's coming up. And she's like, keep an eye on it. If he comes closer, let me know. And so like you see these people that are in the house that are basically like sketched out, like they don't want someone else there, and it makes you feel like something's going on and something's going to happen. And so you have Pussycat, who is like really excited that she brought Cliff. She's like, oh yeah, I'm thinking they're gonna recruit him, especially since he, as you said, he really is alone, which is really a prime victim to be pulled into
because that's
to a
probably
cult.
How most of them were
recruited. You don't have anyone, and then you find this amazing community, or how it appears. So she's very excited to bring him. She's like, I want you to meet Charlie, meet this person, blah blah blah. But Cliff, I think, already has other ideas. He's there to investigate, and so he's like talking, like he's not really talking, he's more so saying hello to the people she's forcing him to, and more people keep coming and coming and coming, and then finally it's like, hey, does my old friend still live in that building? And the tone shifts. The tone shifts. They're like,
oh yeah, he's there, but you can't see him because he's napping.
Yeah, and it's very, like their faces fall, and they like become increasingly more agitated as he pushes to say, well, what's
and as soon as he's like, no, you can't see him, he's napping, I was like, that's a lie.
I thought he was dead.
Yeah, I was like, he's either dead or he's not in there, guarantee. And then when they got up to the house, and Dakota Fanning's character is like, yep, he's over there, he's sleeping right now, he's napping. And I was like, I don't know.
And so and it all happens very slowly, like it pans through all the weird and creepy things and things that just make you feel unsettled.
Mess, it's like, goodness gracious.
And so, like, as an audience member, like, you're led to believe that, something sketchy is happening, which something sketchy is happening, but the reality is he goes to the room and everything they've said is true.
Yeah, that was actually, I was caught off guard by everything being
napping.
True.
He just wants to watch his movies with his girlfriend. He lets them all say by his choice he's happy, yada yada. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. And so he leaves satisfied with the answers, but still unsure of what's happening on that ranch. And when he's leaving, the car has been
vandalized, if you will. One of the guys popped his tire, and Cliff made him.
Oh yeah, and this was like the first scene in the movie that had like
some action.
Yeah, some action and Tarantino's signature gore, I guess you could say. It's not even as bad.
I wouldn't call this signature
I wouldn't
gore.
say, but I would say at least heading in that direction. Like you're used to the whole like we're gonna punch somebody's face off type thing. And
but he busted him up pretty good.
He did, and rightfully so.
So, overall, I think Cliff's character is
I enjoyed his storyline throughout the whole movie. Comparatively to Rick's, I felt like was sometimes less interesting. But I feel like it was a necessity because everything kind of piggybacks off of Rick's slowly dying career, so to speak. But the third storyline, which is a very short one, it doesn't have as much screen time, is Sharon Tate's. And that one also intertwines with the Manson family because when you walk into the movie as an audience member, whether you know the movie is going to feature Sharon Tate or not, for the most part, especially if you're older, which I think that this film will resonate with the older crowd since they lived through that era.
Right.
You see Sharon Tate and you know that she was famously murdered by the Manson family. So the moment early on in the film, Charles Manson goes on their property and like you see that he looks over to Sharon and she like looks at him and like it's a very small moment and it's like in my mind as someone who was very interested to see if they're going to play it, I feel like at this point they have to go there.
Yeah.
They've established that Manson has seen Sharon Tate, and so I think that they are going to touch on this topic.
Yeah.
It's the question is how much is it going to be a pivotal part of the movie, or is it just going to be something that's said and because Sharon Tate is neighbors to Rick Dalton, so is it something that's just going to be said like, oh, my neighbor just died, or are they going to show it?
Yeah. That it wasn't clear as to how in depth they were going to go with that. With that scene, that's actually the only time you see
the
Manson.
Manson it's the only time you see him. Yeah, that is true.
Everything else is with the family. Per se.
It's the only scene that you see him, and he interacts with Sharon Tate. So I think that was just setting it was foreshadowing at the very least.
Yeah, and with the way that they developed Sharon Tate's character, there wasn't a whole lot of vocals at all from Sharon Tate, but it was all made to be she's a carefree, kind, bubbly, upcoming
she's a
actress.
Sweetheart, naive, she's happy, she's really looking forward to everything. She's looking forward to everything that life is offering her right now. I heard in an interview that Margot Robbie and Quentin Tarantino, when they had talked about her character in preparation, was that her character was really meant to be like the heartbeat of the film, something that kind of like they keep cutting back to, where it's not necessarily super like there's not a lot happening, but it is pivotal. This is what's kind of carrying the story underneath it all. Because if you don't, I think that if you go into the movie not knowing anything about it, you might think that the movie is really dry for the most part. And for me, I went in really curious about it, and so every time a scene with her came on, I became very sad or disheartened, because I'm like, oh, you're such a sweetheart, like you're so nice, and you are going to die. And so like every time it cut to her, it was like the ultimate suspense, I felt like, because they were just painting her as this like wonderful human being, and then it's like, and then like in one scene it's like, oh, her movie came out, and another scene it's like, oh, she's super pregnant, and it's just like her life is going on, and she's just like so happy, like she's dancing, and pretty much every scene she's in, she's dancing, she's just being so happy. So I think that if you are really aware and interested in that, it really makes the movie better. If you're not interested in that, you're probably going to find this movie dull for most of it. But for me, that really carried me through, because I was watching her and I'd wonder about this, or like, who's that person she talked to, or when she interacted with Charles, or stuff like that. So
then as it approached the end, this is really where all of the suspense build, and Tarantino's good at building suspenseful movies. They're usually long, and they are more or less very thought out as to how the storyline is supposed to go. And this one, I don't think was any different. It did have quite a bit of a deviation from history, I should say.
Yeah, so like we said, most of the movie is set over the course of a couple days, but then as you get really near the climax, like a lot of Tarantino's stories are typically told in like chapters or some stories. So this chapter ends, the 3-day period ends, and they do like a flash forward 6 months, and you could tell that it's changed pace.
I think it was actually a total of 3 days. I think they did 1 or 2 days in February 1969, and then
the 1 day
6 months later.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But anyway, it finishes the 2 days and then flashes forward 6 months, and the tone changes drastically. It's basically a narrator just saying, this is what's happened in the 6 months.
Time to catch you up.
Yeah, this is what happened. Rick and Dalton are Rick and Cliff are going their separate ways, not because they're not friends, but because Rick's career is coming to an end.
He's realizing that, and he's accepting it.
Yeah, he's accepted. He did not want to do Italian Western films, but I think he finally accepted that his career was ending. So he's like, let me do these, and then it's over. So they're celebrating their last day together. They're getting drunk. They're having memories, and then in Sharon Tate's life, she's now really pregnant, and so she's celebrating with her friends, although she's feeling the pregnancy, so she's not quite as happy as they are. But then in comes the Manson family.
Man, I tell you what, when they actually pulled up to the houses where Rick and Sharon stay. The interaction between Rick and the Manson family had me just cracking up because he really doesn't like hippies.
It is the most unexpected because like we had mentioned, the suspense is building, so you're expecting some sort of like fight scene or something serious, and it is the opposite of serious.
He basically just cussed him out.
Yeah,
like, what the fuck are you doing out here
with the frozen like margarita blender?
He just made margaritas.
So he's just yelling at them, and he's like, "Get the hell out! Like, leave! Your muffler! He was just. First of all, he was just upset because their car was a piece of crap and making loud noises when he just wanted to get drunk and relax on the pool.
Exactly.
So they
backed down the street and everything. So I was surprised that they backed off because I thought they were gonna.
I thought they were just gonna pop him right there because I still at this point thought they were gonna continue on and stick with how history went. So I thought that what was gonna happen was like, oh, we've fallen in love with Cliff and Rick, and now they're gonna die in addition to Sharon. You know what I mean? Because America already knows who Sharon is, but now we've been introduced to these two new characters. Right. So that's how I thought it was gonna go. So the family members, they back down, and they're talking about how they were sent here by Charles to kill the people that lived in Sharon Tate's house. Yeah. And they have to do it. End of discussion. So they go back, but back to like the movie, they're like, but you know what? Let's also kill Rick. They don't know the Cliff's there, but let's go ahead and kill everyone that's famous in this area. Let's go ahead and kill them because screw them. So they go to Rick's house, intending to find Rick, who just cussed them out.
Rick's not really. Rick's out in the pool, out back listening
to music, having a good time. That'd be me.
They did bust in the house, and they found Cliff there feeding Brandy, getting ready to feed
Cliff is also
Brandy.
high.
Yeah, he smoked a
acid-laced cigarette.
Yeah, he was having himself a good time.
What does he say? And away we go.
Yeah.
He was so
and
high.
So it was. I really liked the ending. This scene. It was pretty good.
But that's another reason why I thought that they were all because until this point you have Cliff fought Bruce Lee.
Yep.
And was pretty much winning. It didn't show him win, but it was alluded to like he was.
It was interesting
winning.
how they portrayed Bruce Lee. This movie.
But he also beat a hippie's ass. So there was that. So like up until this point, Cliff is like this. He's that character like no one can beat him.
Yeah, he's an enforcer.
But when he decided to smoke and he was struggling to open a can of dog food, I was like, they've set up the perfect situation to kill this character who is really could have probably had no trouble like, excuse me, who are you, and kill them all. So I was like, no. So they bust in there and he's like, is this real? And he's like pointing a fake finger gun at them because he's so high.
Yeah, because he's tripping hard. But I like that. This is where it went back to more towards classic gory Tarantino.
Yeah, I closed my eyes for some of it.
It wasn't that bad.
I just don't.
It was
like
violent.
Yes.
Cliff smashing this girl's head into various things around the house.
Yes.
In the
the dog comes in clutch, Brandy. Woo.
Yeah. Brandy comes in clutch, and then Cliff comes around and curb stomps his fucking head in.
And then as they're fighting, Cliff gets stabbed with a knife, and then I think to myself again, no, he's gonna die.
He passed out or something like that.
He did pass out, but thank God it just.
Meanwhile, there was still one more person, and she falls through the glass, busts through the glass like the sliding glass door, and falls into the pool with Rick. And oh my, he obviously has no freaking idea what's going on up until this point.
On the whole time.
And she somehow has gotten the gun that they had when they broke in there. And so when she's obviously freaking out because Brandy went and took a few chunks out of her.
Oh, she's
already messed up. Cliff busted her in the head with a freaking can of dog food.
Oh my God, she is just.
Yeah, she is done.
God.
And then
I cringe thinking about
she fell into the pool, and then she comes out. She's poking her head out of the pool and shooting the gun in the air, and Cliff runs into the damn shed and grabs the flamethrower
He grabs a flame
from one of his movies and just
it's so
crisps her.
satisfying. Because, like, I don't know, it's just satisfying to watch them just destroy all of them. Like, he burns her to a crisp, and he uses those words in the film.
When he was talking to the neighbor Jay, afterwards, and he's like, it's like these hippies came in here trying to kill my wife and my friend. It's like, oh my god, is everyone okay? Not the fucking hippies.
That was so funny.
I was like, oh god.
And then he's just like, well, my buddy Cliff, he killed 2 of them, and he's like, I guess I finished the 3rd one.
Yeah.
Burned her ass to a fucking crisp.
Yeah, it was like what?
Yeah.
It's like the flamethrower. Like, yeah, man, I got a flamethrower in my tool shed.
And then, and this goes back to Rick Dalton's storyline. He recognized, he's like, the flamethrower from that one movie you did.
Yeah.
And you see Rick's face
He
light
lights
up.
He's
like
yeah,
that's the one. And you could tell that it touches him, like someone has seen his work.
And then Sharon calls in over the intercom at the gate, and he's like, hey, is everything okay? He's like, yeah, I'm talking with your neighbor. And she's like, Rick? He's like, Rick Dalton's like, yeah.
And the way he turns around,
that's me.
I'm so soft. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
He's getting, and so this goes back to like the whole thing. So once upon a time, there was actor named Rick Dalton who was very successful, but then his career kind of went a little bit wayward down the drain. But all in all, he had a happily ever after because he met Sharon Tate, and you assume that her husband put him in movies, probably.
Yeah, it leaves a lot. It leaves the book
director.
open, because obviously Sharon Tate's husband was Roman Polanski, which at the time he was the hottest director in Hollywood.
He directed Rosemary's Baby, I think.
So
that's what they said.
He was with that. It definitely opened an opportunity for him, and obviously since the movie cut, at the end of that scene, at the end of them, talking, meeting after this incident that just happened, it really leaves the viewers open to
I think it's
what could have
foreshadowed
happened,
because earlier in the movie, when Rick was crying about his career to Cliff, Sharon Tate and her husband kind of just drive by very quickly, and he looks over, and then he stops crying, he starts laughing.
He's like that's Roman Polanski,
he's
my
like
freaking neighbor.
He's like, I'm one pool party away from being cast in one of his movies. So I feel like this opens the door to that like fantasy that he had with Cliff. And so I think, Rick gets his happy ending, Sharon gets her happy ending. She doesn't die. She has no idea that she literally has no idea that she was the target. Nobody realizes that she's the target, in all honesty. But she lives, and then you have Cliff, and I think it's safe to assume that he does live, and because hopefully Rick's career picks back up again, then Cliff is package deal. The only reason they were like # breaking up was because of the
he couldn't afford him anymore. He wasn't getting any business. So and that really for them obviously is a big pill to swallow, because they've been working together for the last 10 years. So they're two peas in a pod. Someone that means more than a brother to you, but a little bit less than a wife. Yep. But all in all, I thought it was a great movie.
Thought it was great. The only exception,
might have been a little bit slow in some spots.
I watched it a second time, and I felt like it was a little slow, but I still enjoyed it. Yeah. However, we went with some friends, and they weren't having the same reactions that we had the first time we watched it. So to each their own. Yeah. It was long, point blank. There was a lot of room for them to cut footage out and make this a 2-hour movie, in my opinion. But that's just how Tarantino does it. Get with it or get out the way. Yeah. It's his last feature film, supposedly. You never know. Probably. Yeah. You never know. But yeah, I don't really have any gripes with it. I enjoyed it, and
no, I liked it.
I recommend it. Just go in knowing that it's a
long, go in knowing
movie.
that it's long. Brush up on your Manson family history.
Yes, that would make it difference.
much better as far as the experience goes.
Otherwise, you're just watching like, why do they keep showing this girl? Yeah. And then she does take up screen time, so it's like it just draws out the storyline even longer. Right. But yeah, we recommend it. And we hope you enjoyed. And we hope you enjoyed listening to this conversation with us. We want to hear what you thought about it, so please feel free to leave comments, ask questions, say what you thought about it. We love to reply and say like, oh yeah, we totally agree. Like, I'm sure there is actually tons of stuff we left out, but for time's purposes, we didn't really talk about it. Yeah. But if you're like, oh, I love this one scene, like, mention it in the comments and we'll hit reply and be like, yeah, we loved it too, or you know what, we didn't care for that scene.
We'd love to hear what you guys think.
And with that, we are going to go ahead and sign off. Make sure you check out our next movie review. It's going to be coming out hopefully on Friday. It's going to be Hobbs and Shaw. So it's going to be the opposite of this movie. But you'll hear all about that later on this week. With that, have a good one, you guys.
Take care.
Bye.